I do see that it's 5:30. Just wanted to, and the way this works, has anyone heard from Melissa, or is she there and I just can't see her?
She is not here yet.
Okay. I just texted her, so hopefully, and I know Rick will be joining us late or potentially only for the regular meeting, so
Correct.
give a minute more. We'll see how this goes. This feels really odd already.
Can you hear us, Hunter?
Yeah, good enough. I might have to lean in every now and again, but
Okay. Right back at you.
all right, I'm not getting a reply from Melissa, so I think at this point, since we're just jumping into the work session, I'll go ahead and call to order the regularly scheduled meeting for the Frisco Town Council. Can you do the roll call, please?
Mortensen,
Here.
Aronson, Burley, absent. Fallon,
Here.
Held,
Here.
Incan, absent. Sherburne, absent.
Thank you. So going to agenda item number 1, this will be a conversation around the award of contract for the police department remodel. And we'll also have this, if we want to move forward with it, as a agenda item later in this evening, and that might be something we amend based on this conversation. And is Jeff available for staff report?
He sure is.
Mr. Mayor, I'm right here.
Hey, Jeff, good to see you.
Good to see you. Interesting. This is my first in-person council meeting in a year and a half, probably.
Yeah,
So-
well, yeah, and I was intimidated enough, so I had to make sure we weren't in the same room together. So,
Well, I'm on camera, so I'm more intimidated than you are, sir.
the floor is yours. Please go ahead, Jeff.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Here to discuss tonight the possible award of contract for the police department remodel. Went out to bid in June, and we had approximately 8 contractors show up for the pre-bid walkthrough, and turned out that only 1 contractor turned in a bid. After speaking with some of the contractors that were there that did not turn in a bid, most of their issues were revolving around labor and not having enough labor to take this project on, along with other projects that they were already working on. The bid came in at $1.501 million. That's including the bid alternate of $29,000 for working at night, doing the demolition work at night. There's going to be a lot of concrete jackhammering in the slab out here to get sewer lines and water lines in for the new showers and the new kitchen. So that's something that I asked for them to bid that out as well, because that kind of work, while town hall is occupied during the day, may be very distracting, dusty, and rather unpleasant for the folks that work here in town hall, even though they all work upstairs, not to mention the folks in the police department. So in my memo, I stated a few options for you. After looking at this further and looking at the bid very, very closely, unfortunately, with the way prices are nowadays and with things the way they're going with labor market and wood products, metal products, HVAC products, this is a reasonable bid for where we stand today. As you may remember, Saunders was the low bid on the Marina building, and they're out there working it right now. So, but again, that bid was done and taken care of, and all of their material packages were ordered before all of these increases. We've seen increases across the board of construction materials anywhere from 200 to 800% higher than they were just 3 or 4 months ago. So that's kind of where we are right now. It's my professional opinion that those prices are probably not going to go down anytime soon. They may level off and drop a little bit in the next year or two, maybe, but as you all know, if you can get people to pay that money, they're going to keep charging that money for those materials. So, with that, I'm sure you've all read my staff report. I don't want to waste a lot of time talking. I'd like for you all to discuss the options and ask me any questions, ask chief questions. This design has been worked for a very long time. And after speaking with Tom Connolly, who was the primary architect on this, it was value engineered from the beginning. So there's no extra, for lack of a better term, there's no extra fluff in here. There's nothing in here that is not needed by the police department. And it's my understanding, and maybe Chief can speak to it more, is that I think he's going to be fully staffed here in a couple of short months, and it's going to get real tight back there in the police department. So with that, I'll leave it to you all to discuss and ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Chief, did you want to make any comments or?
Mr. Mayor, I completely agree with Jeff. The reality is we have 2 bunk rooms for male and female, a full kitchen, and a locker room that can allow our people to travel up here from the Front Range and stay up here for the 4 days that they work. And that was the idea from the get-go. The only thing that we added, and it's really not added, is we're going to be a backup for the Emergency Operations Center in our current comm center. So if that goes down, we're the backup to them. And that's just going to take a 20-foot table. That's the extent of that. And that's all what I have right now. So we'll answer any questions you have.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. So council, I think really there was what we need to discuss is the 3 options that were outlined in Jeff's report, or anything else we want to add to the table. And I guess I would start by saying, I think I don't disagree necessarily with Jeff's valuation of that's probably the going rate for a while on a lot of materials. But I think at that price, I wonder if there's more that we can do, knowing that Town Hall has been also on our radar of needing some upgrades and improvements. And maybe we need to wrap this into a bigger project, given that price tag and the seeming small scope of work for that amount. But love to hear other thoughts.
Hunter, I don't know what you're looking at, Hunter, actually.
I'm still looking at the dais, so yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. It's Andy or Andrew. So, I'll start. I think it's a good project. The number, it's definitely needed. The numbers may be accurate. My only thought is we have a new town manager coming in 5 days who, one of the 6 days, one of the strengths of his background is finding alternative sources or additional sources to pay for this stuff. So I don't know, I did a 30-second Google search on grant funding for police station renovations. And there's a federal funding opportunities for 911 with 27 listings, 27 sources of funds for police station renovations. So my only really thought is let's not jump to contract, because that can preclude us from receiving some grant funds if that's a requirement that it has to be pre-contract or anything like that. For a couple of weeks, let Tony come in. He's the one who's going to have to manage this from the town manager side. And I would just like to put it off to pursue alternative funding sources, and also to have the person who's going to be at the top of our helm involved in the decision. So, but I want to reinforce that the numbers are, sadly, probably accurate. The need is absolutely necessary. I'm just more focused on the how we're going to pay for it line. And before we throw them another $1 million around, let's see if there's other sources. And it's not that long of a delay.
that good for, how long is that bid good for? Just,
By town contract rules, the bid bond is good for 60 days. And we received the bid on July 16th.
It's July, August, September, early
Mid-September
September
is when the,
Okay.
then the bid bond will expire and they no longer have to honor this bid.
Gotcha. Good question.
Contracting company, what they have going on out there, it's one thing they represent, they are able to do is they've got resources to do it in a timely fashion.
Sorry, Dan, I apologize, but I had trouble hearing you.
Trying to confirm that the contracting company has the resources to bring there when we execute this. So that's all. Just want to make sure that they have a high degree of confidence that they're still in a good position to move forward.
Andy, thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely, this needs to happen. I don't love the idea of only one bid for something that's, 3 times more than what we put out for. Not that the numbers are wrong or not, today's residential building cost is about $400 a square foot. And I didn't actually see what square footage we're at there. Like, do you have just a price per square foot?
Yes, council member, I have, it's 4,062 square feet of the building is being remodeled, which comes to $362.22 per square foot
Right.
for a remodel cost. And if you recall, a new building cost, Marina, just a few months ago, was $623 a square foot for the cost of that building.
Yeah. I have no doubt that Saunders is capable of doing what it is. I do feel like Andy, where I think Tony should be part of this decision, as well as identifying other sources. Funding. We do got to do it. Let's not, if we reschedule this right here, let's do it within time where the bid still stands and is still good. I think that's important. I didn't realize you had 8 other people or companies that actually looked at it and nobody put anything in, and that's really a shame. Because bottom line in this industry, you want 3 bids.
Sure,
ideally,
absolutely.
and you want something to choose from. And I know we're gonna end up with the same situation later on tonight. But it's not as big. It's not as big a number.
Well, it's kind of a different situation
That
too.
is,
So
and it's a little more specialized, So I think at this point, I'm not against this. It's a comprehensive bid. Everything's in there. It's obvious. Again, we know you can do it. But I don't think we should be making the decision without the new town managers coming on next week.
Andy, is there, I'd love to just throw out if we can start looking into the some of the stuff that Andrew found with additional funding sources and opportunities, and potentially, I know in past conversations, probably long ago and not with this council, but we've talked about expanding that section of town hall, or even putting covered parking in out there for our police officers' vehicles to have them ready year round. What is this a time to look at a bigger project and expand that whole PD and maybe build a covered deck of parking as well, or covered parking with more office space on top for the officers or for town staff? Or do we want to give it a little time, see what we can come up with funding and the new town manager's approach to working towards this? Do we want to, I guess I'm asking, is there any interest in pursuing more options to maybe, if we're going down this path and there is funding available, we shoehorning them in again into the same space, but just making it a tiny bit more functional. And I'm not sure, and maybe Chief could speak to that, but I just wonder if we're putting all options out there, if we're going to table this for 2 meetings, do we want to potentially get any more ideas that could be there?
I have a retired chief from Irving, California that took over LAX and now he's working for In-N-Out Burger. And they have tons of money. So I'm going to give him a call, see if they can cough up some bucks for us. In terms of expanding more, I think we'll have adequate what we have right now. I'm not trying to take anything your way that you're saying, Mr. Mayor, but we just have a solid plan. And I think that's what we should stick with.
Great. I appreciate
I gotta
that.
say, if we're gonna change aspects, then you're starting from square one again. You know, if we're all good with what it is that, you know, chief needs, you know, then we should maintain with this particular bid. Because otherwise we're going 10 steps back. I feel like, so that's a thing.
You know, and the only thing I'm a little confused on, I'm sensing whatever the renovation with, or Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to put out on the table, because if we're staying within the 4 walls of the existing police offices, are you talking about kind of taking the project while we're under construction in this building and having a little bit of, let's once the building's dusty, let's do something else in addition to the police station? Or are you talking about adding something within the 4 walls of the police station?
I think, Andrew, I was kind of just thinking, you know, if we're going to slow this down because of the cost and it's going to be what it looks like it is, and that's not too far off, are we limiting ourselves by, because I know we value engineered this. I know there were earlier plans with more in it, and do we need to go back and revisit some of that and say, do we need to blow the west wall out and extend the PD a little further while we're going down this path, because that can give us room to grow into. So in 6 years, 10 years, the next council is not having the same conversation and saying our valued police department doesn't have enough space and needs more. And just kind of thinking if I think tabling it's the right idea. I think putting this on the second meeting in August so we can really kind of get new manager on board and looking at other options and potentially funding sources. But if we're doing that in parallel, should we look at, you know, is it time to think a little bit bigger? And if the chief thinks it's sufficient, then I don't think we need to go there. But that was what I was putting out there, Andrew.
All right, I get where you're going, and I think it has some merit, but I don't want to hold this project up any more than it takes for Tony to kind of get his head wrapped around it and explore some funding options and be familiar with the process moving forward. So anything other than that, I would be ready to approve this tonight. Right now, I don't really want to go back and revisit this from a design perspective and start again. I think I appreciate where you're coming from, but I don't see the added value creating immediate benefit. I think that I think the department really would like, in terms of a degree of certainty, in terms of time frame. They've got operations that they're probably prepared to operate, or, you know, to start to implement, to work around this. And with people coming on board, I think they're probably pretty excited about getting the project started. And I'm not ready to hold it up. It's just me, but I'm only willing to wait just for Tony to kind of get on it and see if there's anything you can add in terms of funding value. But I think the project as it sits, it's ready to go, and I'd like to get moving on it as fast as we can.
Okay.
I'm in agreement there.
Well, and Andy, did you say you agree with that? Is that what you said? Sorry.
Yeah, I would agree with Dan's.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm good with that too. I mean, it's important, and I definitely know that space needs a lot of attention. So, are you three good if we put this on the second meeting in August to give Tony a little bit of time to get his feet underneath him, and then we can hit it running? That should give us enough time with the contract. Is that,
Yeah, I bet he'd like to probably get familiar with the site and the people who are going to be most dramatically impacted. And then, you know, maybe at that point, he has some value to bring to the project, but I'm good. To me.
And I'm good with the only qualifier being if, when Tony comes on board and has some reason that would benefit us if we put it back a little further from approving the contract, then we'll listen to him. But at
Yep.
this point, I'm good going to the second meeting of August.
okay. Good. Then I think that sounds
Okay.
like we'll move with that. Thad, for the meeting structure, when we get into the regular meeting, should we just table this until the second meeting?
Yeah, that would be the best procedural approach since we do have it listed on the agenda.
We'll do a motion to table this until the second meeting in August when we start the regular meeting. Great, thank you. Other questions or anything else to clarify? Everybody good on this one? Great. Jeff, thank you for your efforts on this. I know, and Chief, it's been a long time coming, and I hope we get this for your officers soon. So thank you.
Yeah.
Next on the work session is a update on the Marina. Looks like Andrew's giving us the update, maybe.
Thank you, council, for him.
Do we have to wait for Councilman Aronson?
Um,
No?
no, if you want to get rolling, but Katie, just a second. Andrew, is this gonna take a while?
No.
Sorry, thank you.
One quick question. I'm done. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, okay.
And I'm sorry.
All right.
Thank you, council and Mr. Mayor, for having us back. I'm here to give an update and answer any questions you may have regarding some of the public comments from 2 weeks ago meeting from the slip holders at the Marina. Also, Matt Bauer is here from F3 Marina, so if you have any questions for him specifically, he is in town this week. So as outlined in your packet, here tonight, we're going to talk about 3 kind of items here. One being Dock Island. Dock Island is an operational decision that we make every year based on data and numbers we receive months in advance from Denver Water. Something we do every year, and as we have come to learn this year, we are sticking with Dock Island and moving forward through the season with it. The second item here is the shuttle for Dock Island and the mooring balls and the operation that they operate. Currently, those hours are Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Friday and Saturday, they operate 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then third here, where we are looking for some feedback and any input that you, council and Mr. Mayor, may offer, slip holder compensation. And within this category, we have 3 options. No refunds, splitting the difference between a slip and a mooring ball, which is a precedent that was set in 2012 when this was the last time Dock Island was in place, or refunding what back to a mooring price. So those are our 3 options here. And at this point, I'll take any questions that you may have or may discuss.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I appreciate you putting the report together and everything you guys have done to address the concerns. And I, in my other life, I know how hard it is to try to make plans given the weather and nature and the demands of what we do in operating a pretty complex machine out there. And I think you guys have done a phenomenal job, and there's always going to be issues. So thank you for that. And thank you for adjusting as you needed to and on the fly, and we'll keep working forward to making this happen. So as mentioned, we'll need to get to the slip holder fees and if we want to do any reimbursement, but I just want to see if council had any questions for staff. All right. Or for, so I guess the big thing is how do we feel about the slip holder fees, and do we want to try to address any of that with kind of the idea that they didn't necessarily get what they originally thought they were signing up for, and we want to refund some or more of that original fee to try to kind of make right
Can I
some.
track a little bit?
Yep, go ahead,
Before
Dan.
we kind of get to, and I've kind of been wondering, you know, as I saw this on the agenda, if this was going to be, what this conversation was going to look like. You know, a lot of issues were raised by the slip holders out there, and I don't have a boat out there, and I benefit from going down there and seeing the magic that happens every day, but I don't get under the hood, which is the way it should be. You know, I don't think town council is in a position to micromanage anything to do with operations out there. I think we have an expectation that's really customer service oriented. So I'm speaking for myself at this point. I would say that I'm curious about the processes that were in place, or can you describe the process or system that's in place that deals with or that addresses concerns as they come from slip holders, as that level of discontent that they represented at this last meeting became more evident? Obviously, there's a number of issues that were raised, some of which really we can address moving forward operationally, I think, next year. But to be brief, in my world, you know, what we have here, when we have this level of dissatisfaction or discontent, really results from some expectation gaps. At some point, people were expecting some array of services which they paid for and which they feel they haven't received. So can you describe how internally those were addressed with the slip holders? You know, is there some kind of platform for, you know, how are they engaged? Are they engaged individually? As those were brought up, were they did you take a step back and kind of look at it a little bit more holistically and say, and I know this might be a question for F3, because I would like to kind of get a sense of how that happens. Is F3 made aware of some of the issues and they make recommendations? Do you have a meeting together? Can you describe to some degree how, as these are brought to your attention, how resolution is approached?
Yeah, so for the most part, a lot of these, you know, they can come in many forms, either in person, phone calls, or in writing via email. At this point, a lot of what you've heard 2 weeks ago has also come through in emails. And at that point, we have responded to all emails that have come through us. We also consult with F3 on responses and expectations for what is the norm or the standard in the marina industry in terms of expectations and fees and structures of that sort. So we have communicated back with slip holders. We send out weekly newsletters. I think maybe a month ago now, we had a slip holder breakfast where they had an option to come and meet Matt and Diane and discuss some of these in person. So there's been a lot of communication with the slip holders, and we try to address all issues as they come in with that person via email or over the phone, however they have contacted us.
Because I look at the list, and I appreciate that. I look at the quick list that you have here in terms of what you've done. We've eliminated digging fees, we ordered additional dock carts, we installed additional bike racks. And it seems like the thing that's missing here is, in that section, should be something that says, in anticipation of Dock Island being this, and in anticipation of, especially considering that there was precedent in 2012, we're going to do this for you guys. We're going to move in this direction. And did that happen at any point?
I think every day we take a step back and we look at our operation as a whole and see where we can improve, as any operation or any business would do. And so taking those steps as we now get towards this budgeting process for the 2022 season, you know, looking at Dock Island may be a reality. You know, it happened in 2012. That's many years now, but it may become more of a reality as we start getting into more drought-like conditions, not only here in this state, but as the West as a whole. So what are those things that we can do in future plan as we get into budget seasons to add accommodations and meet expectations for Dock Island.
And how will this inform, and the way I look at this is, we absolutely, what we're trying to do here is find a level of accommodation, I think that begins to address some of the dissatisfaction out there, starts to acknowledge that expectation gap that's been created, which we normally like to manage way down here at the point of divergence, because it's much more difficult to manage, of course. So how will this inform the process next year so that expectations are aligned with these service considerations? And again, I'll probably have questions for F3 in terms of understanding or whoever operationally would be responsible for addressing it. Knowing that we have this every year, what are we doing to make this, to have a system in place, a decision tree, if you will, a bunch of if-thens that people can understand and follow on closely so that we can pivot more quickly? If understanding that conditions are certainly are fluid, if you will, but it seems like knowing that this is the crux of the biscuit, operationally, there ought to be a set of sequential operational plans in place that people know that we fall back. And I don't know operationally what's involved each step, but I bet that if I was a slip holder and been down there for 25 years and been through years of different water levels, I probably have some commentary about it, which is certainly what we've been hearing. So those are just some initial thoughts.
And with F3, I believe their contract is with us for a full year. So from February of this year through February of next year. So taking, using their resources, using their future planning, and how do we best implement in the future with those decision trees and processes moving forward. So you really using their expertise as well as every day evaluating the operation of the marina as a whole, and how we accommodate all of our guests.
And I appreciate that F3 comes to the table with a lot of marina expertise. And I certainly appreciate that our marina staff has a lot of institutional expertise in our particular unique high mountain marina application. How is that synchronization going?
I would say for me personally, it's going well. I've only been with the marina, I think at this point, maybe a month. So meeting Matt and dealing with Matt has worked out. This is his second visit for the summer months. He's been a good resource for myself to kind of bounce ideas off of, ask the question of the normalcy of marinas and standard practice, and then taking into account our operation, as it is very special and it is very different. There's not a lot of people who operate marinas in a reservoir that can fluctuate waters at 10,000 feet. So, balancing that, in my opinion, has gone well.
Do I have any comments on that?
I think Katie's done a wonderful job taking over in a very challenging, difficult year. So it's been a pleasure to work with her. So, we've taken a lot of notes this summer as well. We've operated marinas before in similar type environments, reservoirs that drain water for power plants, stuff like that. So this isn't completely uncommon, and it's just developing, like you said, then, anticipating for the future. What can we do going forward now then to have faster response times in the future that maybe we can salvage partial seasons for people, but understanding the full fluidity of the operation here is important this year. So that's what we're spending most of summer on right now then.
You.
You
We're
go
Hunter.
first.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I want to first acknowledge there's a lot going on down there. If all we had was the two construction projects going on that make it so that the water's already over your ankles before you get out of your car, people would be complaining and having a less than perfect experience. Just if all we had was a staff shortage, which is experienced everywhere in the county, it's not like anybody can be surprised that the marina is understaffed. That would create some stress. If all we had was the water issue, meaning we can only go good data creates good results, bad data creates challenges. Denver Water, I'm sure, is doing everything they can, but it hasn't proven to be exactly as we thought it was going to be. There's another challenge that's causing some stress. F3, you guys have come in, my understanding is, are doing a really good job, but it's creating a culture change. If that was the only issue we had this year, we would be having stress and probably some unhappy customers. Add to that the inconsistency of the town manager transition. This is a perfect storm. And so I want to at least applaud the fact that we're trying to work through the storm without completely capsizing the ship. And I think you're doing a good job. We just have a lot of challenges. So to the questions that have been raised, one is one of your questions to me was something about running the shuttle. That's a staff shortage issue. And I appreciate your report acknowledging that even if we said run a shuttle, you're probably not going to be able to extend the hours of the shuttle. So thank you for that. My other thought on the discounting is I look to you guys, I look to you, the leadership, as the people who are the smartest in the room on marina operations, not me. So what should we do? One thing is we should be contemplative in the decision of what we do with Dock Island and how we treat the guests to create the proper customer service result. And ultimately, my thought is we assure them that we are going to create a proper policy for this issue, which will come up again in the future, should be in their contract, to say in the event Dock Island is going to be utilized for more than a certain number of weeks over the summer, you will be credited or not credited, whatever is determined to be the best result. I would think now in the middle of the season is not the time to have the ability to be contemplative and create new policy. But we can give the customer the assurance that at the appropriate time, which is probably towards the end of the season when things tail down and you're not drinking from the fire hose, you're going to institute, you as the experts, as the consultants, as the leadership team, are going to develop a policy for this situation that will be implemented retroactively. So to our current customers, whatever we're going to do in the policy next year, you will receive the benefit of this year. We just don't know what it is yet because we don't have time right now in the middle of our 8-week Christmas season called the summer to come up with it. And hopefully that will placate some of the discomfort. I don't think anybody down there, I mean, we're talking about people who are enjoying the the sport of boating. Whether we give back $250 or $500, we're not affecting their life outside of the marina. So I'm not feeling as if we're burdening somebody at the moment by not giving them money that we may give them later. But I think that would be the appropriate move forward in the world of, you ask for council opinion, and that's what this council person's opinion is.
Thank you. I couldn't, you pretty much said everything I was going to say and more, and I think a lot better than I had planned out. But I also think an important thing is when you look back to 2012, it was a different town, world, and marina in 2012. And I think that's why we didn't hear some of these complaints or issues. It was, we've raised the level of service in the last 5 years down there, and its use has exponentially grown as well. And I think that needs to be taken into account. And I also want to just add, I have probably, while I know I wasn't at the last meeting, probably have received emails and correspondence from everyone who was there, but I've had almost equal amount of people who are completely satisfied, who are slip holders and don't think what's happening out there is the end of the world or the biggest issue the town should be facing. And I think that's important to keep in perspective, that there's the other side to this. And I think, Andrew, I was ready to kind of push all of you to come up with a plan, but I like your approach and what your thought was for let's as you said, let's give the F3 and Katie and her team and everyone else the chance to see how we kind of want to put this into writing and into contracts for the next year. And then when we figure that out, we kind of retroactively make good on what this year ended up being. And I think that's a good approach and kind of sets a good tone. So I appreciate that suggestion as well. Go ahead, Andy.
I'm not gonna get involved with, little operational things that are going on, but as Andy pointed out, the perfect storm of so many things that culminated at one time, as you are the consultant to us, what's your view there as far as, is it working? Is it not working? Is it just because of this culmination of all of these issues
Yeah.
that we're where we're at? Would you like to see something completely different? What's your opinion that way? And I'm only asking you because like we've never even talked to you, or we've talked to you once, right? And and I don't know, have a boat down there, but I don't know a slip holder that is happy, even my happy people. My happy people who are slip holders are keeping their mouths shut is what they're doing. Personally, sorry, before you get into this, it's my view that in the customer service world, we raised rates primarily for most boats. And how we got about getting to that point is for another time. But we raised rates and we delivered less service than anybody was expecting in any case, right? And so from a customer service perspective, I think we absolutely have to give them something. You gotta bend, you gotta give back. Otherwise, these people are just not gonna be happy. That's the way that goes. I think it's easy enough to say that to compare to the moorings, we ended up giving them almost less than a mooring because of the situation after raising the rates, right? And so with that, I would be really interested to know that, what we did in 2012 was we gave back half of the 25% or 27%. That's the difference between moorings and slips. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, I'm not sure on the percentage as the rates were different then. But they split the difference between.
They split the difference, and that's something back. Maybe not enough, maybe it is. That will be up to the slip holders and the rest of whoever is actually deciding this. Should we be just deciding this? I don't necessarily think we should be. I really think we need to more lay out the process that we'd like to see of how, this revenue generator is going to do its thing. And not only a revenue generator, it's also town park. It's also, a place that we all go for free to enjoy. But with that, what's your view on this whole thing? You guys came in, are you like, oh yeah, this is a mess, we're out of here? I mean, like.
We're excited to be here, and it's a great project. First of all, I just want to again commend the staff, I think, for going above and beyond. We worked with a lot of harbors that have had similar situations, and typical response in this is safety and liability first, and that usually just results in shutting the harbor down for the season. So I think the fact that we were able to come up with some kind of solution in order to keep people boating for the season is already above and beyond industry standards. So I think they deserve high marks for that. The rate thing, I guess, is very subjective. We can do it both ways. I've seen it done both ways. I think that's open. We can definitely develop policies either way. I understand the customer service side of that, and the hospitality person in me would probably tend to agree with that portion of that. But I think in terms of running the operation still, though, I think it's been amazing to see that we're able to operate in these conditions still with the data and the challenges we've been given. So staff's done a good job that way.
Also, all the challenges you pointed out, towards the challenges that we've had to deal with, that they have experienced because of, and all of that, I do believe all of it's on us, because we're the ones running the place, right? And, maybe it's just the lack of foresight that, well, we're gonna, due to climate change, we're gonna be in drought cycle for the foreseeable future. Say this is every year for the next 10 years until we have a big year or something. We don't necessarily know, right? And so, how is it or where is it that we're gonna provide a service for these people that are paying for slips, and we're still gonna offer slips, and we're gonna keep Dock Island, and how is Dock Island gonna run, and all that kind of stuff. So with that, I think we procedurally need to define a lot of this stuff before it ends up coming down to the people on the ground having to make a decision that I do think. And then with that, it's also that we have Tony coming on and, a new town manager happening next week, who is the person who's going to be in charge of all this stuff. Like, we can't be making decisions for him as he's going to come in next week and maybe decide, the direction should be opposite. We really don't know. So I think we do need to give compensation. Personally, if we have to say how much compensation, I would be willing to give them the same as a mooring fee back. That doesn't necessarily set a precedent. That means from here on out, we have to say, if we ever have to do Dock Island again, be that next spring, then this is the way it's going to work. And everybody who signed up for a slip understands explicitly that, yes, we didn't do the 24-foot dig, which maybe would have taken care of this, right? That's all part of the big storm. Nobody could foresee what was going to happen there necessarily, right? And we're not going to go back and do a bigger dig to keep the slips where they're at, right? And so in the future, we're going to have to operate this way. People need to understand what the expectations are coming from us as far as, how they're supposed to operate and how they're supposed to get their service from our setup. That's, I'd say, my input. The Marina, thank you. That's Matt
Yeah.
for,
Just a counterpoint. I just want to make sure I don't have an opinion other than this is what you guys do. I don't have an opinion of what the proper reimbursement is, if any. My opinion is that's not a council decision more than anything. So will I be supportive of whatever decision you guys come up with as the recommendation? I probably will, because I think we have good people in good places. But I don't appreciate I don't think it's the appropriate question of how much of a refund, if any, should we be giving slip holders this year? So that's.
So I would disagree. As board of directors, we are the board of directors. We're responsible for framing for communicating what our expectations are. We're the community, and we're representing to you that we think there should be a different process in terms of engagement, different process in terms of delivering, meeting expectations down there. I say the buck does stop with us. And I think it is appropriate for us to be in a position to say, here's what we think. I mean, as a small business owner for 30 years, it's a position I'm very comfortable to be in, because it's what you do when you solve a problem. You put the tools on the table and you find out, for some people, it's certainly compensation. For some people, it's just an acknowledgement that we're going to return next year with a much more articulated process that addresses all of the issues they have. It's quite a lengthy laundry list of those things that I would expect to see in the report from F3 later as we move into what this is going to look like for next year. But I think what I've been hearing is that people who are at the marina feel like there's been a cultural shift to monetize the experience down there as much as possible, and that the personal experience, that the relationship down there doesn't matter anymore. At the end of the day, it's about how much money we can extract from them. And if we can't get it from them, there's a waiting list and we're going to get it from the next people. And therefore, customer service is not as valued. That's the perception, right? So may not be real. And I certainly appreciate that probably staff is very tied in on a day-to-day basis and individual basis to do what they can to make it right for as many people as they can down there. We know that's the case because in aggregate, the experience people are having down there are wonderful. But it doesn't obviate this issue that we have that systemically there's not a process in place to get in front of this quicker. It should have happened. We should have gotten in front of it quicker. If you don't want the board of directors to weigh in on framing customer service expectations, then you should be in a position to identify that and have a process in place in anticipation of us wanting to weigh in on that. You come to us and say, yeah, we've had some problems. Here's what we recommend. We think we can solve these problems. We met with some people. This is what we do in business. This is how we solve problems. So I'm very comfortable saying, and I absolutely agree with Andy Helm, is yes, we should absolutely rebate everything to the mooring place, because from an expectation standpoint, that's at least where we are. If you plot that expectation down, we're at least there. And monetary compensation is the beginning. It's not the end of the process. The rest of the process, I think, is what Andrew Harrison has indicated, which is let's really think about how this shapes people's expectations for next year. So, but it's not just the things, it's not do this list of A through J and we do need to address all those things. It's systemically, I look at that Nexus event for all you Loki fans out there who understand what the Nexus event is. Where was that Nexus event? And why didn't we recognize that this was going to lead to this broader divergence? And why didn't we have a system in place to identify that, engage people, and close that expectation gap sooner so that we wouldn't be having this problem now?
And
To me, that's important.
I agree with everything you just said as our role. My concern really is more just, okay, if we're in the business, if we are as the board of directors, all of a sudden dictating the refund, are we also dictating whether or not a porta potty goes on Dock Island? Are we dictating the hours of, I believe we have the people in place to make this right, but I want to empower them, to do that and make it so that our customer service relationship, our solving of these problems is done better because it got us to this point. So that's my only concern is that's the day-to-day operations, and that's not our role to stick our nose in the day-to-day operations. So I agree with everything you said. I think the fair resolution that we hopefully will come to through the policy conversations is some type of realistic arrangement for Dock Island. But I just, like I said, I think we can do better as an organization. But that's not our job to dictate exactly the nuts and bolts of how that happens.
Well, I think
All I'm going to say is when that recommendation comes back, I'm going to say, here's what I think that refund ought to be. And yeah, should there be more port potties? What can you support? How many people does it take? All that should be part of that analysis. I don't know how many people it takes to achieve X level of service, but the expectations have been allowed to increase to a point where we've got to start to put resources with expectations. And that's the report that I expect to see back. And when I do, it certainly, I believe, is incumbent upon us to say, yes, I think that has achieved our level of customer service expectation. I think that has achieved this goal or that goal, or yes, the new mission statement is now translated into services. Yes, then I would say that. I don't want to fix everything, but I think the question has been asked about compensation.
And that's where I'm at.
And I sit here without the ability to without the knowledge to understand, is there a reason that Dock Island is better than a mooring buoy? And you don't have to answer. But without a dive into that question, if you come back and you say, no, the reality is a mooring buoy and Dock Island are kind of the same, then they probably should be charged the same. But if there are some benefits to being a slip holder on Dock Island that are better than a mooring buoy, of which I don't know, that would be part of your explanation of why have we made the recommendation we made, which is not a full compensation, but it's not zero. So that's what I would love to see.
I think, Andrew, I just jump in. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting anyone from staff, but so I asked staff for this report and put this on the agenda because of the feedback we've had and the concerns definitely from the slip holders who were in the meeting and those who didn't attend, who've also emailed. And I think I asked for this report and the recommendations, Andrew, because I think it could be considerable amount of money. And I think that's when it does come back to us because of the operations and the extent of what they're doing and all the issues we've kind of been, and they have been going through down there, that, this was one where I think we should take that decision a little bit off of their plate because they have addressed so many other things and have been, probably for a lack of a better word, scrambling to keep up with everything that's gone on down there in the last 3 years. And then especially this year with the construction and varying information from Denver Water and everything else. And so I think that's why I understand your take on it, but I think this is a time where it is on us to kind of make that call to say, something that could be $70,000 plus, it should come back to us as a service recovery, as a commitment to customer services, everyone else has said. And I think that's, I would have been more comfortable with half because I do believe there is a benefit to having a dock and being able to put your stuff down on the dock when you get out of the shuttle to get there and have a place to store some stuff, when you're getting to your boat. But if it looks like the consensus with this group is refund it down to a mooring for this year and write it off as an expensive lesson learned, and we will do better. And I think we've all said the same commitment to figuring out a plan moving forward, then I would be comfortable with that. I think that would be more than generous, but it might be the right thing to do to get people whole the best we can, given what they were up against. It's not exactly where I'd be comfortable, but I'd support that. Is that, Andrew, something you would be comfortable enough with if everything else we've all talked about is very explicit and laid out, and when we come back to budget time and the contract renewal, I think, December, January, we'll be having a pretty extensive Marina conversation. And I think we will revisit all of this extensively then to see where we are going.
I would say no, there is not consensus because one is, I haven't heard from our Marina leadership what they recommend. And like I've said, I don't have the knowledge to make that decision of what's the difference between a mooring buoy and a dock island. If they say they're the same, then I probably would go along. But if they say there are the benefits that you're talking about,
Are they the same?
Folks.
Here with an update for tonight, I think we'd like to probably collect some thoughts for a formal recommendation on that then, yeah.
So you're saying you'd like to go back and have some conversations and then come back to us with a
Correct.
recommendation?
You think
I personally, as one of 7, I'd welcome that.
even trickier today, Andrew, you're one of 4 right now. So that's
I know, but by that time, there might be 7. Well, who knows?
Well, I think it's been heard that, I think staff has heard where the Dan and Andy and I are on this. And I think, Andrew, your points are well spoken and advised. And so we will get this back on the agenda with kind of an analysis of what does that equal and what will, not only what's the benefit of a dock versus a mooring ball, and also what's the benefit of running a really high quality customer service focused business, which we're also in, and we'll look at those with a further analysis, I think, from staff and get back. But I think the good part of this is for those who are listening and are concerned is that we are addressing this, and there will be something done in the next month or so to address these problems. Council, are you guys good with that direction?
Yeah, and I think it's important that people who we are serving at the marina understand that this is just the first step in really comprehensively and constructively looking at this. And I expect whatever recommendation comes back to be to have within that documentation, within that report, to have ample process with slip holders and marina users and really understand their position and their feedback, because it's just not a linear thing. It's not just mooring versus, versus Dock Island. It's people who got into the summer with an expectation and have this summer idea of, here's what I'm going to do. It's way more experiential than just this comparative thing. And that's where it starts. And we're not just addressing this thing. We're not trying to create this equivalence, because it's not going to happen in their mind. What we're trying to do is demonstrate that we value them, that council direction that started this process a year ago, some of the steps were made. We take responsibility for that. We acknowledge our role in that. And we're going to really actively support a range of recommendations that improve service and the culture down there at the marina, which I would expect everyone down there to support, because why wouldn't you want a marina where people feel like they're valued and the community appreciates the product that we deliver? Because the community here, as the shareholders down there, and I'm talking about the bondholders, I'm talking about, this is a community park. And, we want to make sure that everybody feels like their values are being represented. Yeah. So this is an important conversation, I think, in terms of that. So again, first step in this process that's going to really rebuild our brand of community service and trust for those customers, and make sure they understand their value and we want them there. That it's not about the money, it's about the loyalty that they showed to this town and that marina. In some cases for, when Bernie was running it, but 35 years ago, whatever, 30 years ago. So, and we want to make sure they understand, we can't make them, this isn't about making them whole monetarily. It's about making sure that they understand that there's a community down there that we want their voice heard, and we're going to make sure the product that's down there incorporates that. It's super important.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. And I hope anyone who's listening in or watches this later on who is a slip holder or even not, because this conversation will probably be coming back when we're all skiing again. I don't want this to be missed and the feedback side not be available. So I hope everyone is signed up to get the agendas via email, so they are on top of it. And we'll probably utilize that mailing list that the marina has for slip holders and others to advise them when, the bigger conversation comes back around in a few months as well. So anything else before we take a break? Great. I appreciate the conversation, and we will, I hope your dinner's there, and I will see you guys again at 7. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, no.
Well, they're under listed as tax.
Like it.
Oh, his house is over there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. Try 5. I mean, what's that, 5, 6, 4, that's 4 minutes, so we got. It's just, let's put the money in the fund. We need to pursue that. Okay, so.
So, and that's where honestly, I think what Eva and I would like to do is have a bigger conversation in a work session format with a larger council group.
Well, that's part of the housing that we're trying to put together.
Properties that
So
we would be
that we can
targeting.
talk about the properties and how to subsidize it and change it. And then,
Hey,
I know. Everything's selling for 50, I mean, speakers are selling for $450,000.
We have. So, we're flipping it 50% ours. And if they don't, we know.
sure, well, we can do it. It's just a matter
We
of
just don't have the ordinance to do deals.
to do the selling afterwards and everything else.
We're gonna lose those. We want to put local workers. Not the road workers. Really come out and say that.
Yeah, and I guess, again, that's where I think we would like to have that strategic discussion with the council on how aggressive do you want us to be, and are there some specific properties or types of properties or neighborhoods that we should be targeting for this? Again, if it's more of a local thing, where do we want to focus our efforts? And if it's just scattershot at every property that comes on the market, that can be the strategy as well. But I would like to maybe have that bigger that discussion. We saw they adopted an ordinance. I just haven't seen what that ordinance is. So. Yeah, and certainly we'll get a copy of that ordinance too, just for reading pleasure.
The local interest that will be examined. The press, but
been very recommended. More than 15%.
I think we should do a rental subsidy grant program. I think we should do a rental subsidy grant program. I want it to be a grant program, and I want it to be on budget. And it can be a homeowner, or it can be the renter, hey, I found a place that I can. And we have a sliding scale for studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom plus. And we keep it simple, and we subsidize to ensure long-term rentals. That's one item. Yes.
Well, and I think
That's
one point with that, or one point with this, with that strategy, is right. We look at the EPS housing needs assessment study and everything else. Rental is the need, ownership's not the problem. Okay, everybody's building ownership. So, the a rental program is the acute need right now. So, yeah, bigger. And certainly, as you had with the Marina discussion and the PD remodel and some other things, we do have a town manager that's coming in with a fair amount of experience in implementing some of these strategies, and certainly like to have the opportunity to sit down with him starting next week. Yeah. So. I'm sorry? Is this live? Oh, okay. I thought it was. I stopped recording. Yes.
Yeah, never, no, I never get switched.
Well, they also know how big you did it. And anybody else? That's why, you know, when I talk.
Yeah, Vanessa's what you get. Vanessa.
as much. No, they should. Here you go. Yeah, I mean, it's. You know, one option there would be, go in and tell the post office, hey, you wanna jump out? Where will it take you? I mean, that's kind of how so, I mean, that's one option.
And I see that it's 7 o'clock.
But there's a waiting list at the other place to go.
We hear you, Hunter.
We can kind of get ready to start rolling at 7 o'clock. Hope dinner was good.
Thank you, Hunter. You're on mic and it's recording.
Great, thank you. Welcome back. Good evening, everyone. We'll proceed with the regular part of our meeting for town council. I'd like to note for the record that Councilmember Inkin has joined us for this part of the meeting. Good to see you, Rick. Hope all is well. And I will kick it off with mayor and council comments. Council, anyone? No?
If I could. I had the great pleasure, Hunter, of being team leader at our last meeting. And while it was the experience replete with edification on my part personally, I was remiss in one thing, and I'm sorry, I'd like to kind of address that now. I really want to thank Jeff Durbin for coming on board and serving our community and our town. He came in here wholehearted and with a great amount of enthusiasm and interest, and we appreciate his effort and his execution and his commitment to this town while I was here. So I apologize, I was remiss last meeting and acknowledging his service and thanking him. And I want to really do that right now.
Thank you, Dan. I echo that. He stepped in and did exactly what he said he would do for us. And he got us through, and we really appreciate his service and everything he did for us and being a part of our community for that time. So thanks, Dan. I appreciate you pointing that out. Any other council comments? Few quick things I'll just say on my end. It's probably obvious that I'm not there. And I just wanted to say that, well, great that so much is back to normal, that we're not quite done with the pandemic. And I am, out of caution and concern for everyone who is in chambers this evening, I had a prolonged exposure to someone who was positive for COVID, and I am vaccinated proudly, but I want to make sure that I'm following the rules and any advice that is out there from the professionals. So I didn't put anyone else at risk, and I'll be doing that for the next few days until my test comes back. So I just remind each other, and we've come a long way, and we've done it together, and we've done a great job, but we're not in the clear. And it's sadly for me a sobering reminder of what is still out there, and in some communities still very bad and very scary and very tragic. So we have been fortunate. I hope we can continue to do that. And let's keep an eye on each other and keep our community healthy. So, and I am feeling fine. So that's the other good news. And on a better note, I'd like to just say congratulations to Mayor Pro Tem Burley and welcoming her daughter into our community. Everyone is doing great. She came on July 20th, so we won't have Jessie with us for a while she's teaching the baby the ropes, and then she'll be back joining us when she's ready. But exciting that went well for everyone. So with that, if there are no other council comments, go on to any public comments. Anyone wishing to make a public comment this evening, do so now. Please be topic specific for anything that is not on this evening's agenda. Please state your name, and if you're a Frisco resident, for the record, and keep all of your comments to no longer than 3 minutes. If you are calling in, use the raise your hand feature, and I will call on you and we will unmute your mic. And because he's also joining us online, I see Mr. Mansfield is here. Mr. Mansfield, do you have public comment? Oh, yeah, I think you remuted. You were unmuted and then somehow.
How's that? Better?
There we are.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've asked for a review of my town of Frisco water request. Before she left, Nancy Kay, when we were talking about the cabin that we're donating to the Historical Society, which is not going to happen in June, but it's going to happen in August. I just got the paperwork to sign and the check is here waiting. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me this time. Bill's Ranch has always, supported the town of Frisco. We live up there. We buy all our food and services and stuff out of the town of Frisco. So we are supportive of your town, obviously. The points that Nancy brought up, and I'd also gone over, and I agree with your assessment of Jeff Durbin and also Jeff G. I just call them G and D, with their excellent jobs that they do. And he and I had discussed the same thing, that at our previous request, it wasn't brought up that we don't have any water. We don't have a well. And then we just got the statement from the Summit County Public Health about the PFASs, and now they're going to test all the wells in Bill's Ranch, or at least most of them. I would prefer just to have, if possible, the wonderful water from the town of Frisco. I am a new build, and that was the points that they both wanted me to bring up. We don't have water and we are a new build. So hopefully you can say, hey, you know what, Craig, you're a heck of a guy, and we'd like to extend water out to you. I'm willing to pay for it. And with a fire hydrant, which, adds for that terrible thought of fire protection. And unfortunately up there, it's, not a question if, it's a question when. So that's about my 3 minutes. So hopefully the council can see the future of what we need to do. And there's already 2 other taps in the ranch that were there previously. And they also put a fire hydrant in there going up 7th Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. I appreciate your comments, and I will, we are discussing water on a bigger picture through the town in the coming weeks and months. And so I will reach back out to you and we'll be in touch. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You're doing a heck of a job up there.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to make a public comment before I go to in town hall? I'm not seeing it. Deborah, are you seeing anyone online trying to raise
I'm
their hand?
not seeing anybody either, Mr. Mayor, but Zoom attendees, if you can raise your hand if you'd like to speak, we're here for you.
Not, I know that Mary Waldman is in attendance, and I will turn it over to you, Mary. If you can state your name for the record, please, and 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mary Waldman, and I live in 261 North 6th Avenue, Frisco. I have been a Frisco resident since 2002. There are many misperceptions regarding short-term rentals in Summit County. One of these fallacies is the idea that short-term rentals is a business that makes a killing for second home owners. Facts don't support this. Back in June, Eva Henson presented Frisco housing stats to the council. It showed Frisco having approximately 3,600 housing units. Of these, there are 638 short-term rental licenses, representing 17% of total housing units. The other 83% locally occupied or don't rent. If short-term rental is such a gold rush, then why don't more second homeowners rent here? First, they want to use it. Of the 3,600 homes, over 2,200, about 61%, have out of Summit County, but Colorado mailing address. Didn't we at one point market Frisco as Colorado's backyard? We have succeeded. This is their backyard now, to relax, to enjoy great conversations with friends and family, to get away from it all. They love Frisco as much as we do and bought a home here to enrich their lifestyle. They are not renting short-term or long-term. Second, despite this week's Summit Daily report that short-term rental sales taxes are way up, short-term rentals income barely offset expenses, and most homeowners lose money as an investment. I manage over 250 short-term rentals, so I know the numbers. This is not a financial investment. It is a personal investment where second homeowners make a conscious decision to lose money to gain a lifestyle. It is not a commercial business. A typical cap rate after expenses on a short-term rental house is about 1.5 to 2.5% max. True investors seek an average 6 to 8% cap rate. No sane financial investor would buy such a low return on investment. In the same token, no business owner would invest their hard-earned money in a business with such low return. I know, I'm a small business owner myself. The real problem is too much of today's current debate around short-term rental is really based on emotion. Let's
Mary,
be objective.
20 seconds, Mary, just so you know. Thank you.
Okay, focus on facts so we can bring about real changes that will benefit the community a long term. Now, speaking of data, Frisco is a tourist town with only 17% of our homes renting. Is this a problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment? I assume we're seeing none. Is that true in the room there?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. There's no other speakers in the room.
We're figuring this out as we go still. With that, I'll close public comment and move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Councilmember Fallon. Is there a second Was it seconded? Sorry, I might have missed that.
I seconded it.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Aronson,
Yes.
Burley, absent, Fallon,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne, absent, Mortensen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item on this evening's agenda is new business. This is agenda item number 1. This is resolution 21-20, a resolution for the award of contract for the construction of the police department remodel project to Saunders Heath Construction LLC of Fort Collins, Colorado. Now open up the public comment and turn it over to staff. But I believe at this time, unless anyone would like a follow-up from staff who wasn't in attendance for the work session, Rick, would you like a?
Read the packet and had a one-on-one conversation with Jeff prior to walking in. I feel like I'm up to speed. Thank you.
Thank you. Then as discussed in the work session, I think there was support to table this until the second meeting of August. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
I move that we table agenda item number 1, resolution 2120 till the second meeting in August.
Been made by Councilmember Aronson. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Councilmember Held. And any discussion on the motion? Can you call the question, please?
Certainly. Burley, absent, Fallon,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne, absent, Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Thank you.
And seeing nothing else, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Was there an agenda change?
Did I miss something?
No. Contract for planning and engineering services downtown complete streets plan update from Susan Lee. Is that?
It's on consent.
Oh, it's on
That was
consent.
consent.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
I was reading it the same way.
I'd love to.
I wouldn't put it past me today to have missed something on the agenda. So, all right. Then we are adjourned. Thanks, you guys. Welcome to a quick. Take
Yeah. Stay.
care, everybody.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Now, Jeff, we don't have to do it here.
Like,
Stop talking.